Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Lifting the Veil. I've got a good show for you tonight. I hope everybody is doing okay. Got some special guests we're going to bring on, but real quick before we do, let's take care of a little bit of housekeeping. If you can hear me okay, let me know in the chat. If I'm too loud, let me know. If I'm too quiet, let me know. We don't want any audio issues tonight. Hope everybody's doing okay. Just going to wait for some of those to come in and then we'll get rolling. All right. Robert Daniels is here. Enduring Truth. Tracy Jones. Appreciate you guys being here tonight. Looks like everything is good to go with the audio. So what you just saw is a trailer for my first Christian fiction novella, Dream Warrior. And it's really a book to offer an alternative to some of the stuff that my guests speak out about. And hopefully we're going to get into some of that topic tonight. But without any further ado, let me bring on Mikey and Aubrey Jenny from Candid Truth. Guys, I think you're muted on your end.
What's up, everybody? Good to be here.
Hey, y'all doing all right?
Doing great, man. How are you?
I'm doing good. It's good to see you guys here. We've met before. It's nice to meet you virtually, Aubrey.
Yes, likewise.
So I like your 80s wireframe look you got going, man.
Oh, yeah.
That's the same stuff I'm into.
Yeah, I mean, it was either that or, some kind of weird symbol just to get you guys going. No. No.
There's a symbol of the sun back there. What's going on, man?
I should have said there is the sun's setting though, so we can say it's the downfall if you'd like.
That's right.
But no, I had to get you guys on. I mean, you and I have talked before, and I know that I wrote the book Lifting the Veil, and in that book I talk about so many things. I think I published it back in 2018. I talk about so many things to where when I saw what you guys are doing with Candid Truth, I was like, I've got to get them on. We have to talk, because I talk about the Roman Catholic Church. We talk about Babylon, the entertainment industry, all of that stuff. So I wanted to get you guys on here.
Washington D.C. and stuff, don't you?
Absolutely, yes. Yeah. And I actually just finished your guys' video on Washington today, and I was like, man, this is good stuff.
Isn't it crazy? When your eyes are open, it's like you can't go back. You can't unsee what God has revealed to you when the blinders fall off. And when you go to a place like that and hear that it's like a Christian nation, it's like, where's it at? Because all I see is pagan symbols, occult symbols, humanism. We didn't see any Christian except maybe a Catholic crucifix with right behind it this double-headed phoenix. So it's wild, man.
Yeah, it's different for sure. I wanted to bring you guys on, but just for those of my audience that don't know you, or that may have not heard of you, I'm going to let you guys share as little bit or as much of your testimony as you'd like to. Let's get you introduced to the audience, and then we'll get into the points.
Awesome. You want to start?
No, I think I'll let you start.
Okay. So my name is Mikey Jenny. You guys might recognize me from Little Light Studios. I was with that ministry for 7 years. And recently, Aubrey and we got married, newlyweds, yay. And we felt the call to start our own ministry. And it was a really hard decision to make when you've been with a ministry for 7 years. But we really felt like there were some things that God was putting on our heart, things that God was opening our eyes to that we really wanted to share. And we wanted to be able to have kind of free reign to talk about what we felt we wanted to talk about. And so God really opened up the doors for us to be able to do that. And we've been doing it for like 3 months now. And it's just been a step in faith, watching God provide each month through generous donors and stuff. But my story, I'll try to give it pretty quick, but I was raised in a Christian home. My parents are basically a long line of Baptist. And I accepted Christ at a young age, around 9, probably 8 or 9. I remember I was just alone in a car by myself while my mom was inside the church transcribing the pastor's sermon. And I was just kind of like that age of accountability. I realized that I was a sinner. I realized I've already broken God's laws. I've already lied and stolen and all those things. And I realized there's nothing I can do to earn heaven. There's nothing I can do to deserve it. I knew that God was a holy God and I wasn't. And I knew the only way to get to him was through the death and resurrection and gift of Jesus Christ. And so right then I accepted Christ. I got baptized. My mom was excited to know that her son accepted Christ at such a young age on his own. You know, it wasn't pressured or anything. And I kind of had this fire in me, and I was at this, we started going to non-denominational churches where they're kind of more charismatic and, dancing around and healing and all those kind of things. And I was surrounded by older teens that I looked up to. They were going on mission trips and all these things that really there was no excuse for me to have any kind of falling away. I can look back and be like, man, I was in church every week on Wednesdays at Bible studies and surrounded by hearing people's testimonies of their lives being transformed. But my parents did say, we're not going to watch MTV. We're not going to watch The Simpsons. We're not going to play violent video games. We're not going to watch Beavis and Butthead and all these raunchy type cartoons, South Park and all that type of stuff. And my parents knew the effect of media, that it has an impact on your life. When, monkey see, monkey do. You watch this stuff, garbage in, garbage out. You watch South Park, you're going to start repeating that stuff. Mm-hmm. And so my parents were smart in that way, but I got to be where one thing I've always been open-minded, truth seeker, and a skeptic. And so I never wanted to just kind of go with the flow. I hate tradition. Like, why does everybody do this just because everybody else did? Mm-hmm. I wanted truth, and I wanted to know that it was true without it just being like, well, this is what I've always, believed, or this is what my family always believed. And I was intrigued by the paranormal, ghosts and aliens and all that stuff. And so I started, I'd spend the night at a friend's house. I was probably like 10 or 11, I guess. And I'd stay the night at their house, and I got to play the violent video games. Mortal Kombat just came out, and it was like the first game with blood. And man, it was fun, ripping people's heads off and all this stuff. And then my parents would go to the store, and I'd be home alone, and I'd turn on MTV, which I wasn't supposed to do. And I'd see like MTV Spring Break, and everybody's in bikinis and they're getting drunk and they're hooking up, and there's a band on stage, and it looks like a blast. And I know no Christian should be in that audience. And I started questioning, like, is Christianity just about like everything fun is evil? Like, is this all about like, you can't have fun? So I was really seduced. What's up, West Blaze? I was really seduced by the media. Satan loves to package sin in this pretty little fun package. How many movies have you seen where these geeks in school, all they want to do is be accepted? They want to get to go to that party. They want to get the hot chick, and they're bullied and all that stuff. But finally, by the end of the movie, they all get to go to that raging party. They all get drunk. They hook up with the girl, and then the credits roll. Mm-hmm. It doesn't show you that addiction that started that night, the drunk driving accident that killed somebody on the way home, the STD, the life-altering STD that was received that night, the unwanted pregnancy that ended in abortion that night. It doesn't show you all the nasty things that come along with these things in life that we think are fun and good, things that God's trying to protect us from, because sin is fun for a season, but it ultimately has these repercussions that come. So I started getting seduced by those things, and Marilyn Manson came on the screen, and I just instantly said, I want to be just like that. And by age 12, I was completely cut off. In my mind, I wasn't a believer anymore. I thought Christianity was really ignorant and narrow-minded. And we moved from Chattanooga, Tennessee to a small town, and I was like, I'm not going to make any friends. Everybody here's a redneck. And it wasn't a derogatory term. These people would put redneck right on their truck. Like, they were proud of it.
Yeah.
And at that point I turned 14, and my parents, like, if I'd asked them, hey, can I pierce my ears? They're like, no, we don't want you to do that. And I'd just come out of my bathroom with my eyebrow pierced or something. I just kind of started rebelling, just doing what I wanted to. And they didn't really know how to handle it, because when you reach that age, it's kind of like, if we force him not to, he's just going to hate us or run away or something. So they just kind of love you where you're at. And, but my mom never stopped praying for me. And I believe that her prayers, her prayers were answered by the protection of the hand of God, because I started wearing pentagrams, all black, listen to Marilyn Manson. I'd go to sleep every night with headphones on, listening to Antichrist Superstar, just brainwashing myself with the most satanic stuff. And I started looking up online, is witchcraft real, or binding spells real, all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd go to a graveyard trying to find a ghost, and I'd never see anything because my mom was back home praying for me.
Right.
I'd see my friends playing with a Ouija board, and I'd say, let me try it, and then nothing would happen. And so God protected me from seeing any power in that stuff, because he knew that if I would have saw that, I would have just got sucked right in. And so I was on this road looking for truth, but my mind was plagued constantly with the thought of who am I? What am I doing here? What's the purpose of all this? Like, if one day I'm just going to be dead, what's the point of even waking up? What's the point of going to school and trying to make myself anything in life if the end result is just death and deletion? What's the point? So I just tried to drown that thought out, the plaguing thought, with drugs, alcohol, sex, everything, that the lust of the flesh. And my parents went through a divorce, and my mom was praying, God, send somebody that Mikey will listen to, because he's not going to listen to me. I'm just his mom. I'm old fashioned or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And God sent my cousin, my older, cooler cousin that I looked up to. Hadn't seen him in years. He had become a Christian, and it really intrigued me. I was in a truck with him for a 5-hour drive, just me and him. And he was trying to reach me where I was. And he's like, man, this book, it's not just a book of a bunch of rules. He said, it's got the answers to life in it. And he said, I pray and I see miracles happen. And he said, it's kind of like that magic stuff you're into.
Mm-hmm.
He was really reaching me where I was, using terminology like that. But he said, don't judge God by all the hypocrites that represent him. And that really penetrated me, because when I looked all gothic, I was judged by everybody, and I hated it. I hated judgment. And so I took the challenge. I was like, you know what? Witchcraft, all this stuff has left me empty, hopeless. It's not what I'm looking for. It's not fulfilling that void in my life. And so I put God to the test, and I said, if you're real, reveal yourself to me like you did my cousin through this Bible. And I want a job at Hot Topic. I was praying that, which is weird to people, but I didn't want to be fake. I didn't want to work. I don't want to put on some uniform, say, hey, have you tried the nachos today? And talk in scripts and stuff. I just wanted to be myself. And Hot Topic was a place where I believed in the products, if you will. Like, I shopped there. I had the look. I could dress the way I wanted to. And so I turned in an application, didn't hear anything back. I Xeroxed it 10 times every day, was turning it in, didn't hear anything back. And so it got to the point where I just had to get a job. So I took out my piercings temporarily, put on a collared shirt, went down this long road of businesses, putting in applications everywhere. And the last place on the road was this barbecue restaurant called Smoky Bones. And when I was talking to the assistant manager, she looked real close at my lip, and she goes, oh, do you got lip rings or something? And I said, yeah, I had to take them out, get a job working for the man. And she said, oh, I understand. And she flipped out a septum ring. The bridge of her nose was pierced, and she was hiding it. She said, come back tomorrow. I want to introduce you to my manager. So the next day I get the job at Smoky Bones. This is not the job I wanted. It's the job I didn't want. I didn't want to wear a uniform, take out my piercings every day, ask people if they tried the nachos, but that was the job I got. And one of the next few times that I got to work with that lady, I said, I really wanted a job at Hot Topic. And she said, my best friend's the manager over there. Wow, big shock. This was the prayer I was praying. I said, God, if you're real, get me the job at Hot Topic. You don't get a job at that place unless you know somebody. A lot of weirdos want to work there. They don't know who to trust. You have to know somebody. I didn't know anybody, but I thought God was some magical genie where you pray a prayer like, Lord, I pray for a car, and it just materializes in front of you. But what I realized was that God works supernaturally through the natural. They weren't hiring. I didn't know anybody. And God was orchestrating my path to put me in the right place at the right time to meet the person I needed to know to get the job. And 3 months later, I got this job at Hot Topic. I'm still like pentagram wearing, makeup wearing, all this stuff. But I wrote on a Post-it note, God got me the job at Hot Topic. Thank you, Jesus. And I stuck it to my mirror. And that was huge for me because at that point I was an antichrist. Like I would try to make anyone doubt their faith and all that stuff. And now I'm like, thank you, Jesus. And I'm reading the Bible. I'm like, dude, this book is crazy. I've never heard these stories before. Like when I got to the part where Lot's daughters got him drunk and their dad drunk in a cave and had sex with him and stuff. I'm just like, what in the world? This book is crazy. And so I just kept reading it. I was like, this is an interesting book.
Yeah.
And I kept going to church, looking the way I was. I'm so thankful that nobody judged me. They were just happy I was in the church. I was in there with eyeliner and black fingernail polish and all that, wearing a pentagram, and they were just happy I was there. So I hope that's a message for people. If a prostitute comes to your church, like, don't run up and say, you can't come in here dressed like that. Like, ask her, hey, is there anything I can help you with? Can I pray with you about anything? Like, come sit with me. Invite her and love her in there. And I think we missed that opportunity.
Yeah,
it should be. I mean, the church is a hospital for sinners,
Mm-hmm.
And so I got to this place where I was like, okay, I believe you exist. I believe you answer prayers, but I'm not ready to become a Christian yet. And so I tried to like kind of put that off because I was like, man, I just want to live. I want to have fun. I'm 21 years old. I'm going to the clubs. And I thought, you know what, maybe when I'm on my deathbed or something, I'll invite you in. And that's such a selfish mindset. God wants to use us in this short life we have. He's got huge plans for our life, and he wants a relationship with us. And so I didn't have that, but I was distracted. Satan loves to use distraction because if he can keep you out of the Word of God, if he can keep you out of prayer, he's got the upper hand. Yeah. Satan is a powerful angel. One angel in the Bible could slay thousands of people. For those Christians that say, oh, Satan, he ain't nothing, that's ignorance. Satan is a mastermind at deception. He deceived a perfect Eve in the perfect garden to disobey God. Do we think we're smarter than that? And so I was distracted by parties. For some people, it might be movies. It might be video games. It might be, who knows, a significant other, whatever it is. If it's eating up your time and keeping you out of the Word of God, then you are not equipped with the sword of the Spirit. That's the way Jesus fought Satan. It is written. It is written.
Mm-hmm.
It is written. And so one particular night, I was just parties all the time, but one particular night, nobody was calling. And so I went home that night by myself. And as I was watching, I was smoking a blunt. I was drinking a big 40-ounce beer. I was watching The Simpsons. And I was just trying to zone out after a long day at work. And while I was doing that, I just had this overwhelming thought that wasn't my own. That's how God talks to me anyway. I don't hear a booming audible voice or anything. But the thought was, why don't you pray? Which was not my thought. I was trying to zone out. And so I said, okay. And so I bowed my head and I muted the TV. And I said, God, I don't know what I'm praying about, but just I pray for this friend and this thing in my life. And while I was praying that prayer, that same voice said, this is your moment. And I wasn't ready for that. And I was just like, no, that wasn't me. That was some other thought. That wasn't my own. That wasn't God. Right when that thought came into my mind, it was like a smack of reality, like a ton of bricks that said, you're searching for God. He's revealing himself to you. He's saying, this is your moment. You're saying no, like you are running from God. And in that very moment, I was like, okay, I can believe God exists. I believe he's answering my prayers. Why can't I believe that he wants to have a relationship with me right now in the midst of my sin? I wasn't in a church. I was drinking. I was smoking. I was watching stuff that doesn't glorify God. I thought I had to clean myself up to come to God. But if you're going to wait till you clean yourself up, you're never going to get there.
Right.
It's always going to be tomorrow. I'll do it tomorrow. We can't clean ourselves up. He wants us where we're at so that he can come in and do the cleaning up because he's the only one that has the power to do it. And so right then I invited Christ in. He gave me these little visions about my mom sharing her testimony, which was believe in all things are possible, that verse. And he showed me that magnet I got my mom that said, believe in all things are possible. And I felt a peace that I've never felt before, the peace I was looking for, a joy that I didn't have before, a weight was lifted off my shoulders. And I remember it was getting late. And so I was on my way to my room, and there was like a battle for my soul. Satan loves when you're 1 foot in the world, 1 foot in the church.
Oh yeah.
And so that's where I was at. But now Satan sees like I'm inviting Christ in. And on the way to my bedroom, as I'm walking, this wave of doubt hits my mind. What if this is all fake? What if none of this is even real? And when that thought enters my mind, my whole body started to tremor and shake. And then I took another step and I said, no, I believe. And instantly peace came over. All the tremor stopped instantaneously. Peace from the Prince of Peace. Wow. I took another step. What if this is all fake? No, I believe. And it was just back and forth, like Satan and angels and God, and we were just fighting for me. And it was this battle of fear and faith. And I finally get back to my room, and I'm like shaking so bad that the picture frames are rattling. And I finally get to my bed, and I go to sleep. And when I wake up, it's like life is normal. Like, what do I do now? I don't even know. I'm a Christian. I don't even know what to do with it. But I knew that I didn't want to shove it. I didn't want to share it because I thought people would think I was shoving it down their throats. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to keep it to myself. But I wasn't in God's word. And if you're not in God's word, it's so easy to fall for the counterfeit. If you're not in the truth, you will fall for the counterfeit. So I started looking to my cousin, the one that inspired me to read the Bible. And I was living this life where I'm working at Hot Topic. I started a clothing line called Execute Clothing. Models from around the world were wearing it. Soulja Boy and his clique were wearing it, or Soulja Boy's clique. I don't know if Soulja Boy ever got one, but they were doing photo shoots in it and stuff. My favorite bands, Dr. Acula, Chelsea Grin, Attila, these bands were wearing it. And it was like my dreams were coming true. And me and a friend started this rap parody type thing. We did it as a gimmicky joke, but people loved it. And we were all about just partying and drinking. And every song was just about getting drunk, getting with girls, smoking blunts. And it was the most packed I'd ever seen a club get. And my cousin was saying, man, you're like King Solomon, dude. You got all the girls. He said, dude, you get all the free beer, man. Jesus turned water into wine. He said, dude, you know that Genesis says every green herb bearing seed is for man? So because I wasn't in the word of God myself and seeing verses like be sober and and knowing the truth about some of these things, I fell for the deception that God was blessing my life in this stuff. And so I just kept chasing this dream, and it got to the point where Bud Ice, Anheuser-Busch, was giving us free beer for our shows because we would always rap about Bud Ice. We had a music video shot in California. We got to this mansion. It was all free. We just show up in California. There's this big mansion, girls in bikinis, Bud Ice everywhere. The guy that was doing the recording was a cameraman for MTV reality shows, and there's hair and wardrobe and all this stuff. And I'm just like, dude, we made it. And I have to back up just a little bit. Right before I went to that, God opened my eyes. This was December 2011. This was 8 years after I accepted Christ in, and I'm still living like the world, but I kind of added Jesus to my friends list or something. I wasn't fully surrendered, and God opened my eyes in an instant in December 2011 about New World Order, about symbolism. It stood me up out of my seat. Like I couldn't believe, because I was the Christian that thought Christians who said Harry Potter was witchcraft were crazy. I was like, dude, it's a kid's book. Let these kids imagine. Right. And now all of a sudden I'm like, dude, it's everywhere. It's like the hospitals, this pharmakia, this Caduceus staff. Like I was seeing logos everywhere and in movies and all that. And so when we went to go do this music video, I changed my flight back home for a day later. And when I showed up to the LAX airport, I see this guy, this big guy wearing a SODMG hat, which is Soulja Boy's record label. And I said, are you with SOD Money Gang? He said, I'm the CEO. And I was like, dude, we're just out here doing a music video. I'm showing him all the behind the scenes. I'm showing him pictures of all his guys wearing my clothes. I'm pulling the shirts out of my bag. I'm giving him shirts. And he's like, dude, y'all are doing it big. It was so crazy that we got a stranger in the airport to shoot a promo video of us. He acted like we were together. He's like, yeah, man, we just out here in LA fixing to go to A-Town and all this stuff. And I was like, this doesn't happen to normal people. And I told him, I said, I changed my flight for a day later. And he said, you know what's crazy? I changed my flight for a day earlier. And he said, it's God. And I believed that. I was like, dude, this is so paranormal and like supernatural that God is opening up the doors for my dreams to come true. And I really had good intentions. I said, you know what? I want to move to California, become a famous rapper, be known for my clothing line. And then when the world looks up to me, then they'll listen to me and I can tell them all about New World Order and prophecy and all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So when I flew back home, that was my intentions. I moved all my furniture into storage. I was sitting on the floor. My friend stayed in California with the girl that hooked up this video shoot. And every day he was calling me saying, when you coming, man? And I was just saving up tip money I was parking cars at a hospital. And while I had that in mind and that was my plan, it was like God drew a line in the sand and he said, you can have this dream. If you want it, it will happen. You see the sponsorships, you see the rubbing shoulders with celebrities, you see all the stuff that's happening. If you pursue it, it will happen, or you can lay it all down and follow what I have for you. And in that moment, I just wanted to be fully surrendered to God. I said, whatever you want for me, that's what I want too. And I made the decision to lay down this dream I had. And I called my friend and I knew he was not going to receive this well. He's been calling me every day trying to get me to come. And I said a short prayer. I just said, God, help him to receive this well. And I called him. I said, man, some things in my life have changed and I'm just not going to be able to come. And he said, well, maybe we can try next year or something. That was crazy. Like he would have never responded that way. He would have been like, what are you talking about, dude? I'm already out here. I'm waiting on you. And from that moment on, I just got really on fire about studying what does the Bible really teach. And I started finding out things that I'd never heard growing up. I learned about the Sabbath and just different things that were not what I'd grown up hearing in church. And I started seeing, be sober. We're in the last days. Satan's like a roaring lion. And I'm like, I'm never sober. And so I was trying in my own strength. I said, I'm going to cut back. Oh, by the way, I thought God was opening up all these doors, but Jesus never said, I'll give you all the kingdoms of the world. That was
Right.
Satan, the God of this world.
Yeah.
And if he offered that to Jesus, do you not think he can offer that to any of us?
Absolutely.
If you just bow down to me, I'll give you the whole world. We got people, all these celebrities walking around like gods on earth who have more money than they can spend. Everywhere they go, nobody even let them spend their money. Oh no, your money's no good here. It's on here. Take some shirts. Your food is free. They live like gods on earth, but they don't have peace. They don't have hope. You see interviews with them. They're depressed. They say, I don't have real friends. I don't know who I can trust. They can't even go to the store and buy toilet paper because of their lifestyle. And I thought God was opening those doors, but it was Satan. And so I'm saying, you know what? I'm going to cut back. I'm not going to smoke today. The very day I'd say I'm not going to smoke, Satan would send his minions in the form of my friends, and I would fall for it, and I'd give in to the temptation. And New Year's 2013, I just said, I drank the New Year in, and I was sleeping on the couch, and I said, God, I am weak, but you are strong. Take this out of my life. I don't want it anymore. I give you permission. Remove this out of my life. And I woke up the next day without a single withdrawal. It was supernatural victory because
Wow.
I had withdrawals every day. They say weed's not addictive. It is. Every day I didn't have it, or all my friends. We were irritable. We spent the whole day looking for it. 30 minutes before I'd get off work, my stomach would be nauseous until I drank my magic beer. And in this moment, God got me through the hardest part, instantly removed any kind of withdrawals. Now the tempter's still there. So every day when I'm like pumping gas and I see a glowing beer sign on my face, that was a temptation. But now I got to become dependent upon him instead of some mind altering chemical. And I'd say, God, give me the strength not to go in there. And I'd get to drive home in victory every day. And when I surrendered like that, I thought God was going to take away my dreams. but he gave me the gifts I have, the gifts of graphic design, t-shirt printing, video editing, even like being on stage. And these are things that I was using for the world to glorify myself or to glorify worldly things. And when I surrendered, God started opening up the doors in ways I could have never imagined. He put me in ministry, and now I still get to make t-shirts, but now I make them that glorify God. I still get to make videos, but now I get to expose the deceptions of Satan and glorify God. And now I still get invited place to place and be on stage, but not to glorify myself, but to glorify God and what he's done in my life. And so what I hope people get from my story is, don't give up on your lost family and friends, no matter how dark it looks like they're in. I don't care if they're involved in these minority lifestyles or whatever. Never stop praying for them. Intercessory prayer is powerful, and God answered my mom's prayers. Don't judge people where they're at. You don't know what's going on in their heart. They might be seeking, and many Christians are not going to talk to that person when they need that the most. And there's always like 3 points I always want to bring out. Don't judge people where they're at. Never give up on your family and friends. And don't be afraid to surrender everything to God. He's got bigger plans than you can ever imagine.
Amen.
There's a graphic that shows a girl holding a teddy bear, and Jesus has a bigger teddy bear behind his back, and she's clinging to that bear saying, no, I don't want to let it go. That's the way I feel. Like I was clinging on to this little dream I had that doesn't glorify God in any kind of way. And when I surrendered, it was like he breathed a breath of a sigh of relief. Like, now I can finally use you. Now you're not on drugs, and you're not, wrapping up, glorifying all these wicked things. And so I just want to encourage people to never be afraid to surrender everything to God. We got a short life here, and God wants to use us in big ways.
Absolutely, man. What a testimony. I gave my testimony one time, and it was like 5 minutes. So that's amazing.
Well, that was the short version.
Right. Yeah, no, that's amazing. Aubrey, what have you got?
Well, mine I feel like is going to be longer than that, but I'll do my best. So I grew up in the church. I have 3 siblings, so I'm a triplet. So the 2 are my triplet siblings.
A brother and a sister.
Yes, so we're not identical. And then I have an older brother as well, who's 5 years older. And that plays a big part into life down the line in my story, because around 4th grade, we, for one, when you're a triplet, all the big bills in life, cars, college, school tuition, everything is
even
all
birthday
at once.
gifts.
Yeah. So I'm from Colorado, in a certain area there where most everyone I knew in the church went to private Christian schools. And we couldn't afford those because of the many children we had in our family. And being triplets again, the same exact tuition would be required. So we went to public schools, which a lot of people didn't in my area. And around 4th grade, the school I was going to got rough, and people started really ostracizing us for our beliefs in that school. It was a private school, but it didn't cost as much as the other ones. And a charter school. But it was really hard because we had to leave that school because of all of that. And my mom just decided, we tried a different school for like 2 weeks, and she decided we're just going to homeschool. So homeschooling happened. And then midway through my last couple of years being a middle schooler, I remember actually maybe the last couple of years to the first years of high school, my dad decided that he was going to kind of have a midlife crisis. And needless to say, I won't go into it, but it caused marital issues for my parents. And that caused quite a few issues inside of me. Most children feel it as their own problem. They caused it in some way. And I definitely took that on. And so I I was going through kind of a depression. I felt abandoned by my dad during that time because he was chasing other dreams and, wasn't really there for the family. And my mom was devastated, so she wasn't really there emotionally. So enough of that. Anyway, my older brother was doing great as a high schooler himself, maybe in his junior year. He was amazing. He had a men's breakfast group for young Christian men to fellowship and talk to each other. And he's very gifted at music.
Mm-hmm.
And he would go ahead and play for a band at school, play for our church on the weekends and another church as well down the street. And he was really just loving life and being an influence for the good and a godly one really well. And we were close. We were really close, me and him. My siblings don't really have that connection with him, which is really special. But all of a sudden, his role model, which was the youth pastor at this other church, was found cheating on his wife with the secretary of that church. And that shattered everything for him. He gave up Christ. He gave up the church, going to church. In fact, the stuff that he did at the churches became a gig type of thing that he got paid for doing. So it all became about money making. And he started doing drugs with his band members. And all of a sudden, the landscape of life just changed completely. I remember having to become more adult-like because my mom was going through so much depression herself that, like I said, she wasn't present much. She just had to cope with life. My dad was doing what he was doing. It was like Satan just attacked us all at the same time. And I just felt not only abandonment from many directions, but from my brother. All of a sudden, he no longer was a believer. He no longer was at home a lot. And when he was, because we were homeschooled at that time, he brought a lot of druggies and drug lords to our house. And it was usually when my parents weren't home. And these people looked like normal, everyday people. Some of them just high school kids that looked like what they're supposed to look like at that time.
Yeah.
And coming from kind of an affluent community like I do, everyone kind of flies under the radar just to look normal, and they want to fit in, especially when they're doing drugs and stuff. They know how to do that pretty well and flip on a dime to, look like the most upstanding, proud child, a child that the parents would be proud of quickly. So when they would meet my parents, they could put on that facade quickly. And my parents are very loving, kind people. And so they were not wise to this actually at all. And we started getting, me and my siblings started hiding in our room because some of these people made derogatory and kind of sexist comments and kind of just manipulative moves, especially on me and my sister. And so we ended up hiding in my room and trying to just not be found a lot of the time when they would come over and my parents weren't there. Luckily, nothing ever happened. But I had a lot of anger from that, all the stuff, the abandonment feeling, the stuff going on with my dad and my parents at the time. He eventually did come out of it, I think 2 or 3 years down the line. But my siblings were coping by trying to just be social and in denial. And I was the one taking it heavily. But I found gardening. I know that sounds kind of funny. But I used gardening as my therapy. I was out there all the time. We had some ducks, chickens, and we had some land basically that we could have our cats and dogs and everything. And I would go out there and just spend time with God. Like God actually felt like he was impressing on me many ideas during that time and revelations and care and support. And I just felt that was my solace. I could find help there. And let's see. My older brother has a heart condition as well. He was born with it. And so his drugs and his drinking all came to a point where he was going into congenital heart failure.
Mm.
And we were in the hospital on and off since then, since high school with him. Every like 4 years, he's back into it because unfortunately he hasn't given up drugs or drinking. Maybe the drugs part by now, but drinking and raving and stuff. So he went into making electronic music. And going back to my story, how this all, after kind of setting the background of how my life was going, I'd always loved music. And that beat was in me. Like I moved with music really well. I was good at dancing, even as a small kid. And don't get me wrong, it's not bad, but there was something that took root inside of me. And it was specifically rap and hip hop music that really got to me. And I didn't think, like I said, much of it until all of a sudden, with all this anger that was building up from neglect, basically, and abandonment and stuff. I remember in college, we went ahead and we, meaning my siblings and I, the triplets, we went off to college all together, of course, and shared an apartment. And what happened was that I decided for once in my life, I still kind of looked like I was a wallflower, by the way. If you gave me the limelight, I used to just blush and kind of want to fade into the background. I avoided all kinds of attention, but I had become scouted in high school to become a model. And so I was doing some of that, but I put that aside to go to college. And during college, I realized that I had always had like the hair and makeup people to make me look nice in all of my modeling stuff. And that I didn't actually know how to do that for myself. And the homeschooling didn't help that because you kind of look like a geek. And I was such a bookworm that people could tell. And I didn't know how to speak to guys, and I'd never had a boyfriend, like all this stuff. Like it's a perfect like Christian girl type of situation where you're just like, oh, they're so pure, you know? And inside I was just going, yeah, but I don't know how to do like anything right now in life except just be kind of like, yep. So I gave into trying to become popular. And I changed everything within like 1 or 2 months. My hair, my makeup, my wardrobe. I wanted to be the cute girl that walks into parties, not to do the drinking or the drugs or sleeping around, but to learn how to mingle and be the most confident woman in the room that turns heads and just kind of works the crowd until I leave. And then people miss you, right? But not only did that happen, and I got very popular, and I somehow balanced out my grades and partying in college. And I prayed to God, just don't let me go too far away from you that I lose myself and I'm always like forever lost. And he kept that promise because I did stop having time with him, worship in the morning, all this stuff. And I became kind of a self-centered person. And I treated my siblings poorly as my roommates. And I stopped calling my mom. Like everyone's worried about my whereabouts. And I'm just kind of like all about my goal of being popular.
Right.
And I'm dancing at these parties. Finally, the dancing comes like to the surface. And I just let it all out. And people were clearing the dance floor. And I was like, oh, wow, what's going on? Like I wasn't used to attention again. But suddenly I'm trying to own it more and it's working. And so I get up on stage because eventually they put me on stage at these parties and stuff. And I just remember eventually the beat would get to me as the music would climax and the rhythm would get there. And I would just lose myself. Like I remember not remembering anything eventually, except walking down the steps again. So walking up and walking down. And so I kind of know what Beyonce feels like because I would totally black out. There was no recollection. I was told I did.
Explain that. what does Beyonce say or whatever?
She says, Sasha Fierce is my persona, like my stage persona, and she's strong and fierce, and she's confident. She can sing loud and dance strong, or whatever she says, something to that effect. But that's not me. And
Yeah, no,
people were
that's a
actually,
demon.
yes,
Yeah.
exactly. And I was being encouraged to come up with some kind of stage name and persona as well, but I chose not to. Because I knew that would lead to a irresponsible behavior where whatever you did on stage, you were not, held responsible for.
Right.
But I was still worried. Like I would look around and be like, what did I do? Tell me what I did. And I did flips apparently. And I bet I was provocative and all kinds of things. But I would get off stage and there would be tons of attention from everyone watching. The girls were trying to emulate you and idolize you. And the guys truly were left and right offering me all kinds of marriage proposals and their cards and new cars and houses and moving in with them, all this stuff. And it freaked me out because I felt like I was being creeped on suddenly. And it didn't really translate into me understanding that it directly correlated to what I was doing and the way I was behaving.
Right.
That took me a while to understand. And the more I blacked out, though, it's strange because I started realizing I used to take 2 hours on my hair and makeup each morning. And I would blast the hip hop music. Yeah. And I would actually use it as a drug, like a stimulant to make myself feel good. Like I was the dope anywhere I went. And I could just kind of be entitled to people treating me that way. And so I would use that throughout the entire day. And if ever I had a low in my feelings or I just wanted to feel even better, I would pump the music again and just really turn it up. And don't get me wrong, I wasn't one of those people when I say turn it up and I didn't let it boom or anything. I wasn't one of those people. But it was enough that every word, like I can still remember almost every word to this music. It's like imprinted on me and I don't even want to memorize the words. But each word became something that mattered to me so much that in the words, they're aggressive. And you can almost hear putting other people down the whole time to actually build yourself up. And so that became what gave me the high. And anyway, doing this dancing and everything, it freaked me out, the attention I was getting. But somehow, just like Satan knows, you like the power that comes with it. You like that ability in some ways. You don't like not remembering, but you like being idolized, or there was that moment, like I said, when the music would almost climax, where you realize kind of like, here it comes. It's going to take me over. And it feels powerful. All of a sudden, sometimes you would even strike a powerful pose and it would just happen.
It's like right before the beat drops or something.
Yep,
right?
when the beat drops, it's there.
Yeah.
And so I still struggle with that, believe it or not. I have to be careful of that. And I'm getting to that part. But eventually I had to realize that the more I did all this, the more I could actually think things in my mind. This is something I know a lot of people might think is strange. But I could actually be like, oh, that guy over by the bar looks like he is gorgeous or whatever, and I want him to come speak to me. And I would just think things and try to play this game of like, let's see if I can get things to happen. And it would happen almost within minutes. So for me, that was a realization that when you do certain things in your life to be self-centered and commune with the devil or the demons that heavily, like every day or multiple times a day, that you are letting him start to control. He's actually taking up residence in the mind. And this whole idea of getting rewarded by him and manifesting whatever you want in your mind before, I never spoke any of these things.
Wow.
They didn't even leave, my mouth. It was all what I thought, and then it would happen. And I started feeling guilty like right away. As things would start happening, I would actually tell guys, you know what? I'm sorry. I was just kind of messing with you, and I was seeing if you would come over and speak to me. It's nice to meet you. I'm good. Like, it's okay. You can, it's nice to meet you, but you can go mingle elsewhere. And they would be fine with it. Usually they were more than happy. They're like, oh, no, but I want to be speaking to you. Or I want to give you my car, whatever. I'm like, no, I don't need any of what you were offering. I never took them up on any of these offers. And I did. I told them, you know what? I told myself, I was being honest with myself. If you do any of this, it's manipulation.
Mm-hmm.
And it's wrong.
That's the Holy Spirit kind of
yes,
struggle there.
Yeah.
Right.
And anyway, eventually that's 2 years went by like that. I started staying out later and later. I started being a very poor, not just example, but roommate to my sister, who remained my roommate throughout all of college years. And again, all she wanted was me to come home and spend time with her and be like a responsible roommate who did the dishes and cared about, helping her out. And I didn't do any of that. I gave her all the responsibility, everything. And I showed up late in the wee hours of the morning and just was like, yep. I started ditching some classes, but somehow, again, it's strange to say this, but God preserved my grades too. So I pretty much ruined all of my relationships with my family members. I mean, my immediate ones, my dad, my mom, my siblings. Meanwhile, my life was still made up of, at that time even, I heard that my older brother was in the hospital for like the 4th time again with this heart condition, which his drugs and drinking only made worse. It was always of his own doing. And we were just like, come on, Lord, take him or don't. Like, he's got to make a decision for you or just whatever. Interesting note, God actually brought him back from flatlining several times during all of that. And still, he can't seem to realize that God has a purpose for him and wants him to come back to him. So pray for him, please.
Absolutely.
And anyway, all this anger had like grown throughout my life to the point where my outlet and my drug was now hip hop. Even that anger repeats itself. It comes in cycles. And then when you play the music, it puts you into a cycle again and again and again of pride and everything else. So my last year of college, let's see, I graduated and actually go back a little bit. Before I graduated, I decided that year, starting my senior year, that I was going to get free of this. I noticed that I was addicted, basically. And again,
describe what that means.
Yeah.
Well, it's hard because it was pretty similar to any other addiction. I was shaking heavily and I thought about it all the time. And I just thought, if I could just turn on even a segment of the music and just feel the beat drop and anything, I could just get that dopamine release. I would, I'd be okay again.
Yeah. I think a lot of people don't really realize the power that music has. I forget who it was, but I heard a psychiatrist say that if he could affect people the way that one song affects them, he would be the richest man in the world.
Wow.
Yes.
So I think I'm noticing a common theme here with music and the addictive power and the way that it steers, which is why it's important for the things that you guys talk about.
Yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Keep going.
No, it's okay. By the way, I got into this because my parents, like most people, I guess, do you hear of this topic about music such as that of hip hop and rap and stuff in churches? Do they ever tackle these topics? No. My church surely wasn't. And my parents didn't know because it never was talked. They never were talked to about it. So it became a taboo, kind of like, yeah, she's into a little bit and she really is good at dancing. But I kind of had to hide it. I did a little bit of it all the way up until college and just let it unleash itself. And through that, anyway, yeah, like I said, I'd shake. And my sister would actually be present in our apartment during that time sometimes, not while I was going through those kinds of episodes, but I would be snippety at her. I would rip her head off over things and just be like, whatever. And I was starting to have foul language come out of me, everything that I didn't never had happen before. And she would eventually leave to go to class or hang out with a friend or something.
Wow.
And I would just begin to have visible signs of like sweating heavily and shaking like crazy. I had another addiction going on as well. And I decided to go cold turkey from both. And that one's a little more touchy, so I won't specify that. But I just thought to myself, again, if I could just turn on just a tiny bit of music and find that beat drop, I will be okay again. And Satan starts working on you. You deserve it. It's okay. It's not that bad. All this stuff. Man, if you can have that kind of effect on your brain to make someone go after it like it's their cocaine or meth,
right?
It's a problem. Yeah. Certain music needs to be carefully monitored or something. I don't know. And so,
Agreed.
yes. And so I spent months by myself, putting myself pretty much through rehab when my sister wasn't home. And I would actually choose times eventually when she wasn't there just to skip class and go through it because I knew I couldn't handle being out there in the world and seen that way. And my parents had never gone through anything like that. My siblings at that time we were kind of squeaky clean. I hate to put it that way, but very sheltered kids in a lot of ways. And so probably my older brother understood some of this, but he was just, going crazy with it. So I was kind of the only one by myself that went through it and didn't think they would understand. And later on, when I told them eventually, I waited a couple years after college to actually tell them. And they were shocked. Like they just had no clue. But they sure enough, they were saying, yeah, we wouldn't have understood actually. So it was good because I had God right there. What he did was, you know how you have, again, God kind of speaks to you by putting messages in your head that you wouldn't have thought. Well, a lot of the time he told me, I'm right here for you. I am right here. And I'm giving you verses right now and songs like hymns to help you combat this. And I started having to grip. I would usually sit down for what I was going to go through. And I would just grip the couch and the armchair really hard as I could, especially when things got really bad. And eventually I couldn't stop myself from just spewing Bible verses out of my mouth. I could not stop it from entering my head and going straight, being spoken from my mouth. And I remember just crying then because I knew he was there. Personally, he had shown up for me.
Wow.
And I had told him, I want to be clean again. And like I said, he continued to do that month after month up to almost, I think, 8 months.
Wow.
And my demeanor started changing and I had to work on the cussing. Like I had to actually cooperate with the Holy Spirit. It was not a supernatural thing that was just taken from me. None of it has ever been in my life. But I lost all my friends because I stopped going to the parties. I stopped hanging out in the environment. I was no longer cool. My totem pole had been built and crashed in the same year. Some other girl who wore the makeup and walked in and was, gorgeous and everything probably took my place. It's how popularity works in the elite world. And that's okay. I had to kind of reckon with that inside of myself. And I actually lost all my friends during my middle school years as well because of my older brother's choices. And as a high schooler, people at church started seeing somewhat of the influence he was having. And they told us, I don't want my kids hanging out with you anymore. So all of a sudden, all of our friends just stopped hanging out with us. No families came over anymore.
Oh, that's rough.
Yeah. And so we stood for our faith. And that's the weird part is the rest of my family, we all still remain in the church, and we just became stronger in our faith. It didn't mean it didn't hurt. Like, I'm well acquainted with, like I said, neglect and ostracizing from others and stuff, but God was always there. And well, I'll kind of fast forward from there. I got through that addiction by myself. Like I said, my parents, my siblings didn't know. Nobody knew. And I went off to Taiwan for 6 months after graduation. And I kind of did a mission/nanny position at this Christian college over there for 6 months, and came back. And I had never dated any Christian boys before. They'd all been party guys. I really only had my first boyfriend even in my last year of college as well, at the parties and stuff. And what happened was, Satan can be so tricky again. Because now that I'd given up those addictions in that scene, he actually uses some of the edge that you have from your experiences. It's kind of like I hate to say the word, but kind of like a vibe that you give off of what you've been through and the scenes that you've been in, that you relate to certain people in their trauma sometimes. And it can be a blessing, but it also can be a curse, because then they can pick up on that and decide that they're going to make you pray. And that's what happened. Was I met the first guy that was into me at church as a Christian guy. And I thought, great, this is God telling me this is the man for me. And that ended up being my first husband that I was married to. And he heavily abused me in every way possible. We got married very quickly, and his demeanor changed even on the wedding night. He was also into his own addictions. He was an alcoholic, and he was trying to mostly find favor in the spotlight as well as a musician at church. And fast forwarding again, somewhere in between the 4 years that we were married, I found out he was a narcissist by almost 3 therapists. And he had brainwashed me and groomed me so well to believe it was all my fault. As a Christian woman, I wasn't doing enough. In fact, if I just served him more, gave him more in bed, or always had the dinner made on time when he came home, or like you know what I mean? What have you, I could actually make him happy. But no matter what I did, he wasn't happy. In fact, all of his problems that he encountered throughout the day at work were taken out on me. And so he would change personalities almost right when he entered the door. And I just knew eventually, like I said, that nothing I did was ever going to be okay. So he would always abuse me no matter what, and have an excuse for doing so. And my parents were wise to some of it. Thank God they could see some of that going on. So they're trying to help open my eyes to this, because a lot of women who are stuck in this, they're under the same deception. They've been groomed to believe it's all their fault, and you cannot get a divorce in God's eyes, which I will tell you is not true. I don't mean to advocate for it. That's not what I'm trying to do here, but he does care about people in abuse situations, neglect, and being abandoned. Those are the ones that are huge, and also adultery. And so I don't want to get into all of it, but I stopped getting out of bed even, because it wasn't worth it after a while. I stopped eating. I stopped getting up because, he was just going to come back and abuse me anyway. And I just lost the will to live. Like nothing really made me want to get up at all. And this was almost the 4th depression I'd been through in my life, which is a big deal when you talk to a therapist. They're like, usually people have just a few highs and lows in life. It really takes a toll on the body when you do. And I love what someone said here. Tracy Jones says, divorce is given by Yahweh, so it is not a transgression. It is protection from transgression. I 100% agree. I had to do my research, and actually they put it into place because a lot of the men in their time, and don't get me wrong, I love guys, but a lot of the men and even rabbis and Jewish leaders were actually dispensing with their wives over burnt meals, which you actually see in the Muslim communities today. Still. it was a patriarchal community of abuse that they set up. And unfortunately, some cultures are still practicing this. That was actually why I had it in my marriage, because he was of a different culture who believed in teaching the men to be this way. They are macho. They are being strong leaders and dictators in their marriage. And that's how it was supposed to be. You're supposed to teach your wife how to submit and suffer well with Christ. And so he would claim, and he still does, to be a Christian and so on. But I decided I was going to get a divorce because he, not only was he abusing me, and I knew God didn't approve of that, but I knew I wasn't going to live much longer if I didn't get out of the situation. And third, he was cheating. So I eventually...
It doesn't sound like a good definition of an actual Christian to me. You know, I
Right.
don't want to place judgment, but by the fruits, right?
Yeah, right.
Yes. And so eventually, when I had told him I want to get a divorce, I was actually really kept. I was not given rights to even have money or even to my own passport or birth. What is it called? Birth certificate. He'd taken all of that and kind of locked it away.
Wow.
So I had to start gathering all of my things and getting the keys and opening the locks and all this stuff in my house. So when he left, I would start doing that. And as I started gathering stuff, I started having this peace. It took me almost 4 hours that day of actually spending it with God and going, how am I going to be okay? Because my husband had made him everything in my life. And now it was like my support was leaving. Again, I was being abandoned, but to the highest level. Loving someone is the highest level of abandonment you can have, because they got into the very core of you, the deepest level of you. And when they're actually giving you up, it feels terrible. And so God had to transfer what I was placing on him as my stability and my everything back to him where it should have been. I needed it to be on God. And so 4 hours went by and I had worship in this one room. And I remember when I knew I was going to get divorced, I told him, and a few weeks went by before he actually acted out. He had some kind of tantrum a little bit later. But I started actually getting up out of bed, working out, eating well, getting myself back together. And he blew a gasket. Like, he was mad. If you can take away control from a narcissist, they will hate you. And so he was also a business owner who made lots of money. Long story short, a few weeks later, he was feeling like I wanted, lawfully, you can take half of, you have to split it equally, half and half in a divorce, unless you agree otherwise. And I was going to definitely go for that because I had 4 of my years of life stolen by him. So I fought for that. And upon declaring that, he threatened my life and went to go. He actually told me, I'm going to go get a gun. And so while he left, I called my parents. They came and got me. I left all my stuff at that house. And I started living from then on at my parents' house. And we had to write into the lawyer's papers when I could go get that stuff from my own house with protection from the local sheriff's department.
Wow.
So I got it. And then we started the divorce process. COVID hit. So it took almost a year and a half for everything to get solidified. And during that time, I already started going to a therapist. I started understanding from many people that I had been truly a victim. Like, people would keep telling me, even from the church during my marriage, stop trying to play the victim role, Aubrey. Like, it's you just not being a good wife. Like, This is what Christian wives have to deal with here. And even pastors would tell me that, or just have a child. They have a child together and it'll fix everything.
Not a good answer.
Right. And so I just thought, no, this is not true. I can't deal with this. And so I started having my therapy sessions. I went through trauma and recovery and abuse recovery for 2 straight years, where I had to put myself back together again as a person. I remember realizing the mountains and flowers again for the first time, because I hadn't seen them technically with my eyes, and acknowledging them for almost 4 years. And I was with my mom, and she just kind of burst into tears. And that's just to give you some context. You totally do lose yourself to trying to serve this person in ways where you try to figure out whether they're going to love you if you do this, or if I try this today, maybe it will change. I was trying to slip into being this servant to my husband in every way. And you just start realizing the brainwashing that has occurred. I had a great therapist, and then I decided I was going to go back and get a second degree. And so I decided to do that. Long story short, that degree did not even get used. I have 2 degrees now, but I started getting to know, this is where Mikey comes into the picture. During those 2 years, I was calling around to churches and ministries and stuff, and I wanted prayer and support. Like, I needed to talk to someone who would hear my story, not just my therapist. I couldn't do this with my family because they had heard it for years about what I was going through and what I allowed to have happen and all this stuff that they thought, you're just being blind. How could you? How could you have even married the guy? All this stuff. A lot of the blame was being put on me. And I was learning how to recognize the red flags, but I've been ostracized, abandoned, neglected, and left by friends, family, and my church, especially throughout my entire life. So I needed fellowship. I needed support. And so I would call around, and people would get so tired of calling and talking, you calling and talking to them, right, and being like, I'm having kind of an attack on my self-worth again, because everything he did, it was verbal abuse, emotional, sexual, financial, everything. And so I had a lot, unfortunately, to tell people. And at that point, I was so desperate that I did just end up telling them everything. And so that's another thing to recognize. If people seem to be, just kind of venting everything to you, usually they need it for their healing process, and they've been through a lot. Yeah. And one of the people that I called was Little Light Studios, where Mikey worked. And they got tired of me. Most all of them did. Until they handed my number to him, and we started speaking over Messenger. And he stuck with me throughout the whole 2 years and heard me from where I was, a broken down mess, desperate to be loved and needed and cared about by somebody, not only friends, but God again. And he just ministered to me spiritually. Wow, and prayed for me.
Ministry doesn't end when you punch out the clock, so very even true. Though I worked 9 to 5 at a ministry job, ministry continues all the time. There were many people that I would talk to online and, answer questions that they had, or just be somebody to hear them out and try to give good counsel for and stuff, So she was one of them.
Well, I'd been through a lot too. Just to give a little snippet, my church at the time was letting in a lot of things that should not be there. Like, some people were doing drugs and declaring that it was okay, and getting heavily into drinking and saying that God wouldn't condone it, and playing condemn it. And that, watching things they shouldn't, like we're going to talk about, and just everything. It was like, it's okay. It's fine to do these things. And I knew better. Something within me, and if not my upbringing and stuff, I didn't know why, but I finally went looking for the first time in my life during this marriage and started getting answers, but he wouldn't listen. When you have someone that's like that and they say they're a Christian, you're supposed to be the trophy wife, and they want to have a good appearance with everybody and rub shoulders with everyone and be known as the good guy.
Right.
In their estimation, but then a totally different person at home. You can't really, no matter how much proof, it was not going to get better. So I've been through a lot of persecution, I will say, in church as well, being married to him. And he would use public humiliation against me as well in Bible studies and church community events. And so I needed a lot. I needed a lot of support and help. I really was a mess, and trying to build my worth and my identity again. So he would hear me out. And then, quite honestly, The divorce was finalized. I got to a point where we were speaking and he said, hey, you need to do a presentation with Little Light, because all the research that had happened in my life to tackle some of these topics led me to actually have stuff to say about it.
Right.
And he was like, whoa, you need to speak on this. So I took my time. I actually put it off for like a year.
Maybe longer.
Yeah, actually now thinking about it. And he, unfortunately, is for my benefit, maybe, I don't know, God had his ways. He was having his marital issues that he was going through with his first wife. And long story short, we were just speaking as friends again in ministry and praying with each other. I got to support him at that point with his marital issues because I was at a point of healing where I was okay.
So I just want to clarify. It sounds kind of like bad.
Yeah, no.
I was happily married, not looking for anybody. I was literally ministering to her, and she was in a place that was not even attractive. You know, I was just, this woman needs to hear some hope and encouragement, good counsel. And I had a Job experience. In 6 months' time, and this is what I mean. Satan hates you when you surrender. I was in ministry. I felt like life was perfect. I was like, God gave me this beautiful family. I'm in ministry. I've forgiven all the people of my past who have wronged me. Like, life is good. And I got invited to share a presentation at my church about the alien deception. And I was excited about that. It was like, this is what had tripped me up my whole life. And God gave me the answers about this alien deception thing in 2012. And I've been waiting so long to be able to share it with the church. And when, you know, the military is on the news saying that UFOs are real and we talked to them since the 30s and all this stuff, people are ready to hear it finally. And so the day that I was like suiting up, ready to go to church to share this presentation, I got a phone call saying that my mom had a massive stroke while she was on a vacation all the way across the country. And I almost called church and said, I can't come. But I started thinking, I was like, she's like a 26-hour straight drive. There's nothing I can do at this moment. You know, I knew that she was going to the hospital, and I said, I'm just going to do the presentation because there's nothing else I could do. So I got up before the crowd, and I told them what was going on and prayed for my mom in front of that crowd and shared this alien presentation thing. And I was surprised at how many people needed to hear that. Old people even were like, somebody at my work is into this stuff. Do you have that on DVD and all this stuff? Satan didn't want his deception to be exposed. Now, I don't know. I can't say everything's like spiritual warfare, but I think it's crazy that my mom had a stroke the day I was going to expose this big deception. 6 months later, oh, by the way, my mom was like, she didn't bounce back from that. It was very severe to the point where she's not in her right mind. She was hallucinating. She still wears diapers. She's dependent. And that was 3 years ago. But 6 months after that, our 15-year-old special needs daughter passed away, just didn't wake up in her sleep. And then my wife was like, I need to find myself. I don't know who I am. And I immediately started seeing somebody else. And so like in 6 months' time, my whole world got flipped upside down. Basically lost my mom, lost my daughter, lost my wife, and my surviving daughter I only got to see on the weekends now. And so I moved in with my parents for 4 months. And during that time, now I needed somebody to talk to, and I needed to share all this stuff. And so we got to finally talk. And even then, there wasn't an attraction. Even then, it was just like, I had a different mission. I thought God was going to restore my marriage and all these things. So I wasn't even looking, but she really got to share with me who she really was, her whole testimony. And then she did get to come and do the presentation at Little Light. And after one presentation, they offered her a job, which never happened before.
Oh, wow.
And we met in person the first time. And then the attraction was there.
Yep. Those eyes.
Yep. And so, we just found each other. God put us together. We knew also after
she was already divorced. My divorce finalized. And
we just knew that we were on the right track together, what we believed and what we wanted
I never
out of
met a woman.
marriage.
I never met a woman that researches and has the love of the truth and wants to share the truth, like the same stuff like me.
Yeah. That's
It's hard to find.
yeah, that's amazing. Speaking of the research, I saw your whiteboard. I saw that video,
Oh
and
Yeah.
yeah.
we'll talk about that here in a minute. But
Okay.
I want to let you finish
Yeah.
with your
So,
testimony.
okay. So, that basically leaves us where we are today. We got married not long after that. After I was offered the job, I moved to here, Chattanooga, where we live. I worked at Little Light, and then not long after that, because of the circumstances of his mom and so on.
I'm an only
Well,
child, and my dad's having to work and take my mom to a caretaker every morning. It's crazy. Like you think something like this happens, and all of a sudden you have like a live-in nurse or something. Like it doesn't happen. It's
right.
so hard just to get help.
Yeah.
And thankfully, my mom's friend wanted to take care of her, and she got on some kind of system where she could get paid from there. My mom while my dad's at work, but he still has to work and barely makes, lives check to check. And I just was like at work every day, loving my job, making a video, doing what I love doing. And all of a sudden it would hit me like, man, my mom is not in the right mind, and my dad's having to deal with this on his own. And I'm getting invitations to share my testimony all around definitely around the United States and in different parts of the world even. And every time I'd tell my dad, like, I feel like I need to be there for you more, he's like, no, boy, you're doing God's work. You keep doing it. And I'm just like, I can't. For a year, I just felt the heavy weight of I need to be there more for my parents. And when she came, we began to pray, what do you want us to do, God? Because we were getting home at 7:00 at night every night. And we're like, we moved to the country to get away from the crazy cities and everything. We're growing a garden so we can have food when everything hits the fan. We're supposed to be exercising, getting to bed on time, but we can't do any of this stuff because we're getting home so late, let alone make time for my parents and my daughter and all these things. And so we just started praying, God, what do you want us to do? How are you going to provide? When do you want us to do it? And God worked out everything. Like the perfect timing happened. I've never had savings. She actually had a little bit of savings. It was a little bit of a cushion for us. And for the past 3 months that we've done this, we've seen God provide every month, just enough, just the right time. And it's just been amazing to watch, to step out in faith, and he will not fail you. If you obey him, he's going to do his part. And so we say, what is it? his will, his bill.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
if it's his will for us to do this, he'll pay for it. And so we've just been living by faith for the past 3 months.
Yep.
And it's been awesome.
Yeah, that's incredible. What I hear from each of your stories, I hear two people that God has each brought through so much stuff. So much deliverance has taken place from addiction, from the things that so many people get tripped up by, and you've been groomed and brought to a point to where now you can share the truth that not a lot of people are willing to share. You guys are in a unique position to be able to share that truth, and now you're doing it together, which is amazing.
The husband-wife power team that only God could put together.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I know you were both at Little Light. You kind of talked about what that was like. I'm curious, did Little Light kind of help prepare you for launching your own channel here with Candid Truth?
Most definitely. In 2013, when I surrendered everything, like there was a fire in me. Like I was like, I want to be a youth pastor and all these things, because I just have a burden for the youth. That's when Satan deceived me the most. And Satan's after the youth because they're the future. If he can get them while they're young, he can transform, he can really corrupt the whole earth.
Yeah.
Yes.
And actually it started before that. It started before I surrendered everything. Even when I was still a Christian that smoked weed every day, drank beer every day, and rapped, there was something in me. I was like, I want to be a youth pastor or something. And God knew I was not ready for that.
Right.
But
he had some pruning to do.
Exactly. And so, getting me in Little Light and making videos and kind of being behind the scenes, kind of, only in videos, not in person.
Mm.
But once everything happened, like my mom had that stroke, my daughter passed away, marriage fell apart, and I was like wrecked. That's when God started opening up doors for me to speak in person, place to place. And it was so therapeutic for me. It was like almost every weekend I was getting invited to some other church to share. And it really helped me a lot because it gave me an outlet. I felt like I had purpose in life and all these things. And that was, just the past 3 years now. And that definitely, I do believe that God used Little Light as a stepping stone for sure. Little Light's a great ministry. I recommend anybody check out the videos. There's so much eye-opening information out there. And it's kind of like church planting, like if we just stayed at Little Light, then all the information is right there at Little Light. But now there's another channel. There's your channel. There's FEB. There's all these channels out here that are getting the truth out. We need to spread out and make more channels so that more truth can get out there.
Absolutely. Now, with that being said, were there any topics that you weren't free to discuss at Little Light that you can discuss here?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
One I think I can freely say now, which was kind of my baby at the time, was the holidays. I know that sounds weird to some, maybe if they're familiar with Little Light, because they tackle other hard topics.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
But some of our, their family members apparently were still quite attached to it, and it would have sparked conflict within their families if it was put out in a video. I tried to do a 3-part series on it, one for each quarter of the year, which I'm doing now. The first one's already come out on our channel, and I'm working on the second one. But I remember recording the first one, and a couple days before it was supposed to air, there was a meeting and they wouldn't allow me to get it out there. And when I realized personally that was kind of a benign topic to me, like that was minor, but they were actually not allowing me to speak on it. If I couldn't speak on that topic, how many other topics of mine, if you're acquainted with our channel, would I not be able to speak on either? Like they were going to make sure that didn't happen.
Yeah.
So
go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say there's a couple other things. Like I would love to talk about biblical cosmology. That wasn't something that they saw an interest in, which I'm okay with. I know it's like a very dividing topic. And so honestly, if we would have done a show on it, it would have been like the committee would have been split, it would have been like me and maybe somebody else agreed with biblical cosmology while others would have held to their view. So it would have been more like a debate that really didn't have a good conclusion at the end.
Right.
But yeah, that was one we kind of just agreed, like, yeah, we probably won't ever talk about that. Yeah.
I gotcha. Well, I mean, I figured biblical cosmology for sure was at the top of the list, but it's like you said, what you're wanting to bring up with the holidays, that's an important thing. And this isn't a bash on Little Light. I love their ministry. I love what they talk about. They do a lot of great work. But there are other topics out there that do need to be discussed, and they fall into the same category of controversy that many of the topics these channels are already discussing do.
Right.
So I guess that kind of answers the question about the pushback and everything that you may receive. And I love the fact that you guys do you tackle the topics that churches won't touch. They're not safe for Sunday school. So what do you feel is like your biggest obstacle to get that information out there? Like, do you get any pushback from friends, family? Have you lost any relationships trying to approach some of these topics? Because I know a lot of us have experiences like that, and it can be encouraging to build one another up.
I can say if I was still in my former relationship, it probably could have caused a wedge. A lot of people are still really sentimental about holidays. You look back and there's some of the most fondest memories you have, like remember that Christmas and I got that thing, we did all that, but it's really just the family time. It's like you could still have that without a tree and all the traditions that root back in paganism. But I know that could have been a really difficult hardship in my marriage. Thankfully, my parents are now on the same page. Pushback, though, I mean, for some reason, YouTube doesn't want to monetize our channel, so we must be saying something controversial. They call it harmful
Content.
controversial content. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
so
I
there's
said,
always gonna be pushback when you're sharing the truth.
yeah, I think that's a sign though that you're doing something right. You're definitely
Yeah.
uncovering something that doesn't want to be uncovered.
Yeah.
So the pushback can be kind of a positive negative,
Right.
in our ministries. Okay.
I don't know if you wanted to answer something.
I mean, unfortunately, so my dad, I'll just clarify something. So on my dad's side of the family, everybody is a different denomination, and they've gone kind of into witchcraft to Buddhism to Native American beliefs. Everything gets really crazy. And I grew up in that. So I had to learn also. I didn't know God was preparing me, it seemed, for this and so on. But you had to learn to be loving and kind towards other people who totally believed really different. In fact, in ways that you really don't agree with.
Right.
And also still stand for what you believe in, even though you're being really persecuted and made fun of for it. And not to always put yourself in that position, but so that was preparing me. And along the way, you do lose certain people who just don't want to deal with that anymore. But I guess I had grown up with it so much into my college years and now that they kind of just know that we're stable in that and that's what we're doing. And some of them have come back, friends and family, to ask, what are you doing? Because it seems to be working. You don't seem to have, you've been delivered obviously from these issues as well. What did you do? And so that kind of helps. But I also learned, like I said, in my last marriage, I learned to rely upon God as the only solid person I could really hang on to and count on. That was a hard lesson. But I mean, I can count on Mikey and a few others, and everyone's got their circle of friends and stuff that they've kind of vetted like that. And that's a safe thing to do. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I don't know. It's just kind of, you have to know that God is really your only source of dependence.
Absolutely.
And foundation.
We know that Christ promised, you will be persecuted for my name's sake. You will be hated, delivered up by all men, and even killed for the truth. And I believe we're in the last days, man. If you look around, see the signs, they are everywhere. And the world is primed and ready to receive a one world religion that's going to bring finally some peace to this chaos. And I think it's vital to get out all the information, because the Bible says, Revelation says, that Satan, the dragon, is deceiving the whole world. And you look around, most of America are celebrating these sun worshiping traditions. Most of them are in some way participating in paganism, whether they idolize superheroes who are based off of Greek and Roman and pagan gods. And it's like Satan has a flavor for everybody. Yeah. Oh, you're not into superheroes? What about the holidays? You're not into that? What about drinking and pharmakia and just everything? He's deceiving the whole world.
Yeah.
And when the blinders come off, it's like you see through all that. Just like that movie, They Live. You put the glasses on and you see obey and consume. And it's like you see right through all the propaganda.
Yeah, no, the world is definitely in sad shape, which kind of brings us to a very fun point of this discussion, and that's some of the many topics that you do discuss. Yeah. Before we get there, I'd like to share an excerpt from the book that I wrote, years ago, and see if any of it sounds familiar to you.
All right.
It says Pergamos was the center of the new Babylonian religion. It is from Pergamos that Semiramis set herself up as the only way to get to God. She said that she gave birth to him, therefore you could gain an audience with him through her. She also taught salvation by sacraments, as well as salvation by the sprinkling of water.
No way.
Yeah.
Is any of this sounding familiar?
Yeah.
It sounds like most of my presentations.
Right. And then, one of the main symbols of the new Babylonian cult was that of a mother holding her child. And this was meant as a representation of Semiramis holding her son Tammuz, who's believed to be the reincarnated sun god.
Yes.
This is now referenced as the mother-child cult because of the incarnations of the symbolism throughout history.
Wow.
Yes.
So the Catholicism is definitely on your guys' list of things to discuss. And one other point that I want to bring out from my book on that topic, and then I want to kind of let you guys free flow on it, is the fact that they're keeping idolatry alive and well. You know, the old statue of Jupiter with its occult blessing hand is now called St. Peter in the Vatican. And as stated earlier in the book, the statues of the gods from the Roman pantheon can be found in the Vatican Museum, with the exception of the great statue of Jupiter. He's been modified, retitled, and seated on a throne in St. Peter's Basilica in Rome to represent St. Peter. And then thousands of pilgrims kiss the foot of Jupiter while thinking it's a statue of Peter, which would still be idolatry. And it's been nearly worn away from the many pilgrims who kiss it, paying homage. And then you can kind of notice that sun wheel for a symbolism of sun worship, which you see all throughout the Vatican and the Catholic churches as well. So you guys kind of free flow on what you know about the ancient Babylonian cult that was reborn as Roman Catholicism.
Oh my goodness. So this is where I usually
you don't have to get in super detail, but just kind of give a high level overview, because there's some other things that I think would be edifying for the audience.
Cool.
Yes. So I just want to clarify. Someone said that's not what my Bible says. This is actually, it does mention Nimrod in the Bible, and Nimrod is the husband of Semiramis that he just read about. You actually have to go into history to discover the rest.
Yes.
And where it goes from there. So if we're not having an eye open to both the Bible and history, we will repeat history, which is what Satan is counting on and is happening. So the overview you just gave, I'll dig into it a little more. That's usually where I begin in most of my lectures, because I need people to understand that foundation. Just like I began, we'll go back to the very beginning. So usually this begins with Noah and his sons when they got on the ark.
Yeah.
And his sons, Japheth, Ham, and Shem. Sorry, there was a fly. And Ham, as it's known in the Bible, he saw his father Noah when he was drunk, uncovered. But it says, I can quote this from Samuel Bacchioli's book, The Flame of Yahweh. Actually, that's not him. Richard Davidson's book, The Flame of Yahweh. Where he actually goes through all the areas of the Bible where there was sex and kind of perversion happening. And as he translates from more of the Hebrew, Aramaic, and Greek happening at that time in the original texts, he actually picks up on the understanding that Ham liked what he saw, his father's nakedness. He was of that persuasion and liked some of that. And so the two brothers, honoring their father and covering him and not even looking, but putting the robe on their father and just honoring him that way, respectfully, showed so much. I don't know, to their credit, it showed so much about them. He did not, though. And through his line, Ham's line, this seed of perversion almost got seeded in him by Satan. And because here you have the only family that now exists on earth, the new earth after the flood. So Satan had to be clever. How do I do this? How do I make one of them start having this in their line? So Ham had his son named Cush, and Cush had Nimrod. And Cush, so father and son together start building the Tower of Babel. And again, you have to go into this from the Bible and history. And by the way, Nimrod didn't just build Babylon, he built Nineveh, and he built several other places spoken of in the Bible as corruption by God. And his uncle at that time was Shem. If you follow down the lineage that we just spoke of, Shem was his uncle, one of the sons of Noah, and he remained holy to God and very I guess, upstanding in God's eyes. And he actually killed Nimrod because Nimrod not only set up the Tower of Babel, but he married his mother, Semiramis. So here you have incest for the first time. And as he read, their child, Tammuz, whether that was her being loose with someone else in their practice or actually conceived of by the two of them, Baal worship began under their rulership and under their calling themselves a deity.
Right.
And it kind of just all takes off from there. All the baby sacrifices and passing your children through the fire, and everything else, all the, I don't know, temple prostitutes, all this stuff that you wouldn't think of. It just really took off. I know that, what?
It's almost like every pagan, occult, satanic practice and religion that we have can all be traced back to Babylon.
Exactly.
You know, that's a no-brainer almost, but yet so many people don't see that connection.
Yes.
Yeah. So.
And I'll just point people back very quickly to when Nimrod was killed by his uncle Shem. He was honored by God for doing that, but all the followers of this new Baal worship went underground. And they began to create like caverns, and they were on in groves and in hidden places. They always did before because they had their sun worship events and ceremonies. But now they're going underground, and this is where we see masonry happening, because they would hewn out stones, as the Bible says, and they would create pillars and altars and even rock slab type benches to sit on in their places of worship.
Right.
Whereas if you go back in history, you'll see that Israelites actually always pretty much had wood that was carved out for their benches, and they did not have an altar out of hewn rocks at all. It was actually whole rocks that they had to piece together to somehow make the altar that they burned their sacrifices on. And so there's that parallel. But as you said, we really would have everything culminate that's terrible in the world, from all the secret societies, the Illuminati, the government. I actually think that the government plan to kind of set up the one world government and Washington, D.C., and kind of this idea, not that that was particularly in their minds, but to actually overtake the world that way was already a plan.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'm trying to find my note on it real quick since you mentioned the Illuminati. A lot of people hear that and they think Beyonce or Jay-Z or, the puppets that are having their strings pulled.
Right.
And they don't realize that historically the Illuminati absolutely existed.
Yes.
That's
there's
not what the
records
little
of its
fact check under the video said, though.
Right. Yeah, no, the fact check got it wrong. There was a founding, and I'm trying to find it now. I'm terrible at navigating the studio as well as talking to you guys and trying to keep things running smoothly. So I apologize.
Oh, you're good.
It's okay.
Yeah, here it is. Let's see. Well, I said here it is.
I was trying to think if I could bounce anything off.
It's mixed in with my entertainment industry, which is ran and controlled by what many people would call the Illuminati. But I'm trying to find my historical information, the year it was formed, who formed it, all of that good stuff. If you guys know it, feel free to share it quicker than I can find it here.
I don't, but if I can add just one last thing.
Sure.
So not only did people become, like, Freemasonry was born in all these different sects of secret societies, and the Illuminati, as well as, you said, kind of the confessionals and sprinkling with water, and Roman Catholicism was born then too out of Baal worship. I'm sorry to blow that one for others, but if you really go back in their practices, it's the same. But what I'm getting at is most of the followers actually went and fled to the island of Alexandria. And there, most everyone became the highest order. That's where we get degrees and everything. They actually practice their magic to the highest degree to master it. Levitation, alchemy, pedophilia, conjuring up demons through doing that, everything. they became masters of their arts.
Yes.
And they wrote about it at the Library of Alexandria. And it was said to have burned down. But during that time, if we really think about it, they resurfaced. All these people came out of hiding from the island of Alexandria and went to Rome, where they infiltrated Rome and all of Caesar's
Rome.
empire. Yes, Rome again.
Right.
And so it really hasn't changed. If you really connect the dots, they seized the moment, and throughout history, they've been ruling this whole time.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Which makes it difficult to break the veil of illusion that is in people's lives and keeps them blind to what's actually going on around them.
Mhm.
If you know what to look for, we kind of touched on it earlier. If you know what to look for, and once you're
Yeah.
awake to it, the occult is literally in every aspect of life, everywhere you look. There's
Oh,
some kind
yeah.
of sign, there's some kind of symbol, there's some kind of hidden lyric in what
Yeah.
seems to be a cute little pop song, but there's always something referencing back to the occult.
Mhm.
And now we're beginning to see a correlation between the occult and the Rainbow Mafia, where one is, the other one is always present. At a Pride
That's
festival,
true.
you see satanic imagery. At a
Yep.
satanic get together, you see Pride imagery.
Yeah.
And I want to say you did a phenomenal job with the whole androgyny thing.
Oh, yeah.
So
Oh.
I'm going to let you plug that for just a second, while I try to get this light to stop blinking over here. Because
Okay.
guys, if you're not subscribed to Candid Truth already, do it now and check out the androgyny video that was done. It's phenomenal. I'm going to let you
That's
talk about it.
probably the video that is keeping us from being monetized.
Yeah.
So
Very
go blow
possible.
that thing up.
Yeah.
But I've caught on to that, and it's that even that's like a touchy subject for people for some reason. But I've said that movement, I don't know what we call it, the alphabet people. I don't know what we can say and what we can't say, but that movement of pride is a satanic movement. It's not just, love is love, and no, it's satanic. And you'll notice whenever there's a pride parade,
Mhm.
you'll see mocking of Christ. I've seen Jesus on the cross or wearing a rainbow robe or something. They're always mocking Christ.
Mhm.
And Satan is glamorized. They'll wear horns and dance around, or they'll have a banner that says Satan loves you, or they'll have pentagrams and witches.
Mhm.
And all of this goes hand in hand. Paganism, Satanism, and the alphabet people. And it goes vice versa. When you have witch parades or pagan fest and all that, you see tons of rainbow flags everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
This rainbow flag is more than just, I'm proud to be of this sexual persuasion. It is literally the banner of Satan. It's his flag of allegiance. Pride is what made Lucifer fall. And they keep adding colors to this thing to where it's not just, oh, we are of this sexual persuasion. Now it's, we're going to add Black Lives Matter in there too. Oh, you're brown skin, we're going to put
Right.
you on there too. Oh, you're trans, we're going to put that on there too. And they keep adding to it to where now if you're just a minority, now you must stand with us as well. It's not just about sexuality. It's about literally the word pride. This is the flag of the New World Order, the flag of a satanic world. And it's even been flown at the White House, dead center from the railings of the White House with the American flags on either side of it. Like
Right.
it's taking over.
Yeah.
But it leads the way because I want people to go watch it, but I'll just tell you, I wanted to know where it came from. What are the origins? Why does it exist? People thought, especially as a Christian, my whole life I thought, oh my goodness, history's getting so bad. How come we're seeing this happen in this day and age? Well, I will tell you, it's been happening throughout all of the ancient times in the ancient world, even. And why, you'll find out in the video, it is linked with certain spiritual powers that are of darkness. That's why when you see witches identifying as that or actually supporting that or linking themselves with that, there's a connection there. So go watch it. Oh, it's called Androgyny, the dark.
Dark origins of androgyny.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely check that out if you haven't already. I don't think you'll be disappointed. Now, with that being said, there's another topic that I definitely want to touch on tonight. And I want to preface this by saying that we probably don't agree on every single point of our theology,
Mm-hmm.
and that's okay.
That's right.
Because even though I may not agree with everything as far as end times and things like that goes, it doesn't keep me from recommending the truth that you're sharing to other people. And I feel
Yeah.
like we need more of that in the community that's on YouTube.
Amen.
You're not teaching, you're not preaching heresies. You're not, it's not like you're trying to lead people into this type of worship of the world system.
Right.
You're trying to pull people out of Babylon. And I think that needs to be aided and represented as much as possible, whether we agree on the exact timing of eschatology or this or that. Those things are, we can have conversations about that, but it's not something that's going to make or break a fellowship.
Amen.
So when I bring up these topics here, if there's a point of, where we're not exactly in alignment, it's not a big deal. You guys are still doing excellent work, and
Thanks,
I still
man. You
highly
too.
recommend anybody check you out. So,
And I agree the same way, man. I hate that Satan has created division even in the body of Christ. We should be able to get together and discuss things without, dividing. That's what iron sharpens iron. That's what it's all about. Let's reason together. Let's study together. It gives us a reason to get in God's word. Let's find the truth. The truth will set you free.
Absolutely. So with that being said, let's just go ahead and rip the Band-Aid off. And what are your guys' thoughts on the so-called alien deception and this disclosure that we've been getting, and the fact that our government is admitting to we've been in contact with non-human intelligence for quite some time now?
Yeah. So I think it's crazy because I've been intrigued by the paranormal, especially aliens, my entire life that I can remember. I mean, I remember checking out books in the public school library on ghosts and aliens in the second grade.
Yeah.
And when I wasn't getting good answers from Christians. I didn't really know what to do with that. And back then it was kind of weird anyway. I was kind of one of the few that said, I know that aliens are real. And I would watch everything, sometimes it'd be like on Fox tonight, the alien autopsy. And I'm like, yeah, like the leaked footage. And I totally bought into it. Like, let me get a drink real quick. I totally fell for the deception, like that leaked footage would actually come out on Fox News. Are you kidding me? The controlled media. I was buying the bait. And so when I became a Christian, I was like, now what do I do with this whole alien thing? I was not well versed in the Bible at all. I even thought, well, maybe God made the earth through evolution. Like I was that's totally impossible. For one, God made the earth in 6 literal days.
Right.
But I was so not well versed in the Bible that I had these different ideas. And a show called Ancient Aliens came out, and it gave me all the answers I was looking for. It showed something like it talked about how Ezekiel saw a wheel within a wheel, and that wheel had eyes all around it. Well, that's a UFO with the lights all around it. Talked about chariot of fire. These are primitive people just describing the only way they knew how. Like their vehicles were chariots. So yeah, it was a chariot of fire. And then it showed Moses and the Israelites being led by a pillar of fire out in the wilderness. And they said, that was the beam of a UFO. Even the pillar of smoke by day was the exhaust from a UFO. And that really, I bought into
technology
that
creating exhaust, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I bought into that because I was like, look, if God created this vast universe, which is what I used to believe, that there was like this ever expanding universe and all these billions of planets and all that stuff, I was like, if he created, I believe he is the creator. If he created this vast universe, surely we're not alone in this world, in this universe. And if he created life out there, which I believe he did, why wouldn't he send an alien that has the technology to come to Earth to help Moses and the Israelites out of the wilderness? He sends angels to shut the mouths of lions or to go give Daniel a revelation or whatever. God likes to use agents. He likes to send beings on a mission. And so I was like, this makes sense. And I believed that hook, line, and sinker. And then it wasn't until that was probably 2004 to 2012. And in 2012 or December 2011 is when the blinders fell off and this whole alien thing made sense all of a sudden. I'd heard here and there, like, aliens are demons. I was like, that's ridiculous. Like, they fly in ships, they find crash landed vehicles. Why would a demon like crash land? I had all these reasons to think that that was a ridiculous idea. And then now suddenly it like completely made sense. For one, the majority of sightings are not, oh, I saw a metal ship with nuts and bolts. No, they're seeing a glowing orb.
Right.
The propaganda that we've been raised on our whole life through, sci-fi novels, cartoons, video games, movies, is when you see something strange flying, it's from space and it's aliens driving it. So now if you see a glowing orb, instead of thinking spiritual, we're thinking, oh, I just saw an alien flying around. So most people are seeing orbs. These things defy physics. They fly faster than 1,000 miles an hour and can make a 90-degree turn. Well, that would kill anyone driving the vehicle because they'd just get slammed up against the wall, or be shredded by space dust or whatever. For another, space doesn't exist, so that debunks all that. But also, these things can appear and disappear off radar. They can split. One ship can split into two. These things defy physics in every form, including if there are many New Agers who channel these beings. They're literally allowing an alien from another planet to talk through them. How's that possible? How's that physical? They can sit out in a field and meditate, and all of a sudden they see one of these orbs. They meditate and say, I want to see you. And all of a sudden they see a UFO fly by. Now tell me, how is it possible that a physical being on another world is like, wait a minute, there's somebody down on that speck who's praying in a field. Let's fly by just to answer their prayer. It doesn't make sense. It's not even logical to believe that these beings are physical beings from another world.
It's like they haven't made the connection that the only way to communicate with them is through occult practices.
Exactly. And so Aleister Crowley, the wickedest man alive, he had a book, and in it he drew a picture of the demon that he often had interactions with, and it looks identical to one of these alien grays that everybody describes, the big bulbous head. And now we're in such a deceptive time because of all the propaganda that once there was a time when I saw a black and white footage of a guy interviewing people on the street, asking them if they believed in aliens, and they'd say, no way, that's like science fiction stuff. Well, now I've personally gone downtown here in the Bible Belt of Tennessee, and I've asked people, do you believe in aliens? 99.9% of the people said, absolutely. There's no way we're alone out here. This universe is just way too big. And I said, if an alien came to Earth and said, we have the answers to all your problems, would you trust them? All of them said yes. Not one person said, well, I don't know. I don't know why we should trust these beings. They all said, yeah, they're much more smarter than us. They're much more technologically advanced. Not a question in their mind that these beings could potentially be deceivers.
Right.
But that's exactly what they are. They're interdimensional deceivers. Satan and his demons have created this mythology about who they are, because if you read the Bible and you read about angels and demons, well, you would never listen to a demon. But if that demon comes disguised as a serpent in the garden, or as a dead loved one, or as an alien, then you'll give into that deception.
Right. Yeah, or especially if they're the beings that put us here, why wouldn't we listen to them?
Yeah, they created us. They have nothing but our good and our good.
Yeah. It's all Gnostic. All of it has this very Gnostic twist.
Yeah, Satan created us. Is literally what that's what they
teach.
Yeah, if you remove the veil of the aliens seated us here and all that, they're teaching Satan is our creator, and they are our gods. That's exactly what Satan wants. He said, I will ascend my throne above the heights of the clouds, and he wants worship from all humanity. And how does he do it? Well, teaching that these aliens are gods in the New Age world, embodying, possessing the American idols of our world, who stadiums are filled with people lifting their hands. If I could just touch you, those people on stage admit that they're possessed by demons. So demons are literally getting worship while they're on stage. And Satan has many different ways of getting the worship that he is craving.
Absolutely. And I think that it would help if we actually had a understanding that these beings, the known as the Anunnaki, known as the Greys, or the whatever they have going on, these beings actually exist. They actually existed in times past. A lot of what we call Greek mythology to the Greeks is called history. A lot of these gods that were worshipped were physical, spiritual, physical beings. Because you're not going to get an entire people group to do some of the things that they would do in reverence to these gods if they're just looking at a statue or a totem pole. There's an actual being that's behind it, and those spirits are still at work today. Now, as far as the alien deception goes, I feel like you've already touched on it a little bit, but I know your stance on biblical cosmology. What role could that possibly play in helping to break the deception? Because I always lead it with this. Your thoughts on the shape of the earth is not a salvific issue. It's not going to admit you into heaven. It's not going to keep you out of heaven. It's not a salvation issue, ... until it is. And when you have thousands of documented testimonies of atheists coming to the knowledge of the truth through the topic of biblical cosmology, and you have millions of young people leaving the faith every year because what they're taught in college doesn't line up with what the Bible says, it absolutely becomes a salvation issue for those people.
Well,
so how could a proper understanding of biblical cosmology help to lift the veil and break the deception?
Yeah, because that's usually the first thing people say. You know, they try to debunk this idea right away. Well, we've seen Earth from space and all these things, and then when you kind of give them pushback on those ideas, they finally just get to a frustrated point, and they're like, "Well, I don't want to even look at it. It's a distraction. It's not salvific or whatever." And I say, but if Satan's final opus is to come on the scene as the cosmic Christ, and literally this image that we see of Jesus comes out of a UFO and says, when I resurrected, I ascended back to my mother's ship, and this is how I travel, and all this stuff, all the deception that could be wrapped up in this UFO alien agenda, if that is Satan's final deception, that miracle working demons, it literally talks about that men's hearts are going to fail them for fear for the things that they see in the skies, miracle in the signs in the heavens, miracle working demons. When these demons come in the form of aliens and they say, look, we can get rid of your pandemic, we can fix your climate change issue. Both of these are fake anyway. And these are problems that are created to make, these are illusions that are created to bring humanity to a place of utter fear. Like, we need a savior. If we didn't have the concept of climate change and global pandemics and stuff, life would be like normal. We wouldn't need a salvation. We wouldn't need a savior. No, life is good. But they create this fear propaganda to bring us to a place where we need a savior. These beings come on the scene. We can fix all your problems. We can even cure some of your cancers and all this stuff, because some sickness is caused by the enemy. When you start messing around with the occult and drugs and all these things, you're giving permission for Satan to put ailments on you. Satan can remove those ailments, and now it looks like he's healed you. When these miracle working demons come, they're going to say, look, we've also come to help save your planet. Revelation says that 3 unclean spirits, like frogs. Think about what an alien gray looks like. These frogs are going to unite the militaries of the world to unite in a battle against the coming of Christ. And so these beings are going to say, there's an evil alien invader that wants to take over your planet. And the only way you're going to survive is if you team up with us, because we have the technology. And so humanity will literally be siding with demons in a fight against Christ.
Well, not
Now-
only will they say that, I don't know if you've seen the episode, but according to ancient aliens, through their occult practices, they've already been in contact with these entities, and they are saying that they have an
Oh.
enemy.
Wow.
They have an enemy out far distant in the galaxy that they're going to need us to unite as a people and help them defeat that enemy when he shows up. Through
Mhm.
I need
their
that clip.
seances and their Ouija boards and all the ways they talk to them. That's what they're telling them.
Yeah.
I need that clip, man. And
try
so
to
if
get that
that's
to
the
you.
case, if that's the final opus, then does biblical cosmology matter?
Mhm.
Because if we understood that there is, during creation, there was a firmament put in the waters that separated the waters above from the waters below, that
Yeah.
the sun, moon, and stars are in the firmament. For those people out there that say, oh, the firmament, that's a word for clouds or for atmosphere. For one, there were no clouds at creation. The first clouds appeared at the flood. The earth was watered by the dew of the earth before that. For another, if the word firmament means atmosphere, then we got a problem when you see that the sun, moon, and stars are in the atmosphere, because
Mhm.
that goes against everything we've been taught. And if there's water above there, then there's no aliens coming down, because it says that the firmament is strong like looking glass, that it's a dome vault. There's nothing out there that's coming in here, and you can't buy into Darwinian evolution. You
Right.
can't buy into Big Bang, and you can't buy into the alien deception. That's salvational, because in the last days, the great final deception will be to deceive humanity, including Christians.
Mhm.
And if we don't understand, if we fall for that deception, then we're going to be taking the mark of the beast, and that is a salvation issue. And so that's where
Right.
I feel like that understanding biblical cosmology is understanding truth, and the truth will set you free.
Right. We're going to actually fall for the beings coming from space as Christ, which will be the Antichrist if we don't understand this.
Yeah, I mean, biblical cosmology with a proper understanding, the only thing that we should be looking for coming down is the kingdom and
That's
the
right.
Messiah. They're coming down, not aliens. What people are dealing with now are
Mhm.
the unclean spirits that are trapped to roam the earth looking for
Yes.
So
And
yeah,
think
very
about
true.
how much propaganda is out there priming the world, predictive programming. Every movie now is about the end of the world.
Mhm.
Even the cartoons and everything. Every trailer I see, it's like, it's the end of the world. And in Transformers, it was literally, you hear the good guy, Optimus Prime, talking, and he's saying that there's this cube out in space.
Mhm.
Like, sound familiar? A cube out in
1500
the
by
heaven?
1500 by 1500.
There you go. The
Right.
cube. He said there's the cube. It created all worlds and all life in it. Well, that's Yahweh. He created the worlds. He created life in it. And then he says, all sentient beings deserve freedom. How do we get that freedom? Destroy the cube. Destroy the creator, the cube that's coming to Earth. That's one movie. You got another concept where you have like Marvel Endgame, where admittedly by the artist, all of the superheroes are Greek and Roman gods.
Right.
Well, now let's unite all those gods together to defend Earth against one evil alien who's sitting on a throne in a spaceship called the Sanctuary, who wants to come to Earth, snap his fingers, and divide the sheep from the goats, the wheat from the tares. He's going to
Right.
destroy half of humanity.
Yeah.
That's Thanos, but it's also the same description as Christ.
It's the same character as the good guy of the story.
That's
Yeah.
But
right.
yet
And
with the
so
Gnostic twist making them the bad guy.
Armageddon, we all need to
Mhm.
save Earth from an asteroid. We all need to save Independence Day. We all need to save Earth from this evil alien invasion. It's always a threat from out there
Yes.
that's coming to Earth, and humanity needs to set aside its differences. It doesn't matter if you're gay. It doesn't matter if you're a Buddhist. We need to just all unite, kumbaya, coexist, because we need to save Earth from the outside threat. But that's not what happens in the book of Revelation for the believers. The believers are going to be here during all the chaos, and we're going to embrace and long for what's coming to Earth, while Satan is rounding up everybody to come together and fight against that thing, which is Christ.
Right.
I was just going to add real quick that not only are they saying that you have to come together as human beings to fight this outside force coming, but it's for the sake of having your own freedom, liberty, and rights that you want to fight for. You need to uphold this. Those freedoms and rights are actually to continue on in these occult practices and rebellion against God. That's the truth of the matter. That's what Satan always does, is he puts those things in your mind as though your very human rights are being taken from you. But they don't realize that it's that way. It's the deception that he has going on.
And what is, according to Aleister Crowley, what's the only law?
Do what thou
Do
wilt.
what thou wilt.
Do what thou wilt. And what is being taught to us through every form of media? Do what you want to do. It's the music, like, ooh,
Follow your heart.
Follow your heart. Disney, break the rules, follow your heart. Every Disney movie has the same slogan, and talk to the dead while you're at it.
Yeah.
Right.
Simba was talking to his dead father. Pocahontas was talking to the spirits of the wind and the trees, and Frozen Elsa was saying, she wakes up in the middle of the night, I hear the spirits and I'm not supposed to talk to them, but I feel like I'm supposed to. And she's looking for the earth, wind, fire, and water and all the elemental witchcraft. It's pushing witchcraft. It's pushing spiritualism. It's pushing break the rules and do what you want to do. Moana was told not to go out and set on the sea, but she did it anyway, and she saved the day. It's always about, don't listen to your parents or those archaic rules.
Right.
Do what you want to do and save the earth.
Yeah, very well said. I couldn't agree more. I tell you guys, there's so much that we could cover here, and we're already well past 2 hours. My studio lights are dying behind me.
Oh no.
So with that being said, I don't want this to be the first and the last time that I have you on. There's a lot that I would like to bring you guys back to discuss. But for tonight, to respect everybody's time and bedtimes, including my own, let's begin to kind of wrap it up and share with me any future plans, like if you've got any secret projects or anything that you're working on for Candid Truth. Give us a little tease of what's to come.
All right, we have some controversial topics. Big surprise. We're going to be talking about what the Bible has to say about alcohol consumption. And we're going to look at it through the lens of science and what the Bible says. We're going to look, which I didn't realize that'd be so controversial, but it is.
It's very needed. It's very needed.
We're always going to look at, current events and how that ties into biblical prophecy and break down movies and things like that. Aubrey's going to be doing part 2 and 3 of the pagan origins of each holiday. There's so much to cover in there. And you would think it's just, maybe just Halloween that was pagan, but no, it's all the ones that have been veiled in Christianity. And, there's a verse, I can't ever remember where it's at in the Bible. I think it's in Jeremiah, but Yahweh's talking and he says, don't look unto the heathens and how they worship their gods and say, we will do likewise under our God.
Right.
A lot of people say, look, maybe it did have its roots in paganism, but I do it for Jesus and his birth and his resurrection. Yeah. Well, that's exactly what he said not to do. He said, don't look at how they're doing it and do it unto me, because I hate those things.
Right. And he used the word hate.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there are definitely pagan aspects to all of them, and those can be avoided. Where I don't think you're saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think you're saying that you need to shut yourself in your house and stay away from your family on, let's say, Christmas. No. It's a great time to be with family and fellowship. So some truth, enjoy that time together, but we can absolutely avoid the pagan aspects.
That's right.
Yeah. So just to clarify, you wouldn't do any of the rituals related to it. So the decorating, the certain foods, the certain sayings, I guess, and so on. You just wouldn't do those on that day.
Right.
It's like any other ritual. If I said, "Hey, come, Merry Christmas, guys, come over. Hey, we're going to play with the Ouija board," you'd say, "No, not me."
Right.
But it's like, well, we're going to put up this tree that honors the sun god. We're going to do whatever else. There's all kinds of different things. We're going to eat the ham, you
Yeah.
know, and it's just
Which is
like
a whole nother topic with
Yeah.
unclean foods. That's
Right.
very deep. But yeah, I've always noticed these holidays always require you to eat something that the Father has deemed not for us.
That's right.
Correct.
So, yeah, very interesting, guys. I'm looking forward to everything that you have coming down the pipe. So before we close this out, tell everybody where you can be found, how they can support you. Let's spread the word.
Awesome.
So you can find us on candidtruth.org. You can also find us straight on our YouTube channel. Just put in the browser Candid Truth. We should come up right there. You can also support us through several methods: Venmo, Cash App, and Zelle, as well as PayPal. Those links are actually on the website if you go to donate, and all the information is there. So,
And we do need your support. You know,
Yeah.
you need support. These channels can't exist without people supporting. I know we're so used to
Very
just,
true.
you know, in my old days when I watched TV, I'd turn the TV on and I know it's going to be on there. But even
Mhm.
those channels are supported by McDonald's or whoever.
Mhm.
We can't do what we're doing without you. We felt the call to do this ministry. We stepped out in faith. We're trusting in God to provide.
Mhm.
But it takes a lot of work. You know, it looks like a lot of fun. I know you're just flipping
Yeah.
through slides and having a good conversation, but those slides don't come together on their own. It takes a lot of research, screenshots, trying to put it all together. We're not just, you know, pulling up something that we saw on YouTube or on Google and reading it.
Yeah.
We're actually
Right.
having to dig for sources and everything. And so it takes days to put together a presentation and then go live with it. So
Or weeks.
that
Quite
could take
honestly.
weeks depending.
Oh yeah, for sure. And depending on what you're doing, like if what we're doing tonight, if you're hosting a live stream with a guest, a lot of those platforms, they're not free.
Mhm.
Websites
That's
aren't
true.
free.
That's right.
Software subscriptions to create the videos and create the graphics are not free. It's
Yeah.
not that anybody's trying to lock the gospel behind a paywall. It
Yeah.
just all of the content's accessible for free, but
That's
to
right.
keep it coming, it does
Yeah.
require some type of monetary support. And with that, I'll say this: I think this covers you guys. It covers FEB. It covers Back to the Covenant, Kingdom of
West
Context, West
Blaze.
Blaze. People have no problem spending $7 every day on a
Mhm.
cup of satanic coffee.
Yeah.
But when you talk about $5 to $15 a month to support the content that the Christian community craves,
Yeah.
our pocketbooks get tighter. And I think we need to start looking at it as we support what we believe in,
Mhm.
or it's very easy for some of those things to go away. And like you said, you guys stepped out in faith. This is your gig. This is what you're doing. And I encourage anybody watching that feels led to support you guys to head over to that website and check out ways that they can do that and see what we can do to keep you guys up and running. So,
Also,
Thank
we
you.
we go church to church sharing these presentations. I still give presentations that are Little Light presentations, the Battlefield Hollywood stuff.
oh yeah,
So these are also things that help support. You can go to buy our merch. We got some cool T-shirts. If you want to
That's
get
true.
something, a little bang for your buck, and wear something that represents, that helps. And you know, I also want to promote what you got going on, man. You got some books coming out. I think it's awesome what you're doing, giving fiction out there, something that's cool to read, because so many people get wrapped up in these movies, whether it's Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, whatever these things are, and you're providing something that fills that void once we give up those things and gives them something positive and uplifting and that points people to the truth. You know, the Bible says, whatsoever things are pure and lovely and true and all these things, think on these things.
Yeah.
And there's so much garbage out there. I'm so thankful that you're putting out something that's edifying and something that when we get rid of these things in our life, it's a void. And so we need to fill that void with something positive. For me, when I gave up alcohol, I had to drink a ton of water so that I wouldn't even have the craving or desire or room in my stomach to fit an alcohol, a beer. And so same with movies and all that kind of stuff. And I'm so glad that you're out here putting out some cool stuff, man. So go buy his books.
I appreciate that. I do. There's a market for everything, and everybody has talents and giftings that we can be using to provide positive outlets for what there's a negative market for. So guys, y'all keep doing what you're doing.
Thanks, brother.
If for nobody else, for me, because I love watching it.
Thanks,
So
man.
I'm going to let you guys go and close this out, but I definitely want to have you back on and talk about some other things. You know, now that the introductions have been made, we can just kind of dig deep and hit some topics pretty hard. So
that'd be awesome, man. Thank you so much.
Cool.
It's been an honor.
Thank you.
You guys have a good one. Thank you.
You too, brother.
You too.
All right, guys. Thank everybody so much for being here. I don't know about you, but I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the conversation, the fellowship. I think they have some excellent things going on over there on Candid Truth. So if you haven't already, give them a subscription. Hit the thumbs up on this video, like some of their videos, share these things with your friends and family that you know would need to hear what they're putting forth. Also the same for my channel. Make sure that you're subscribed so you don't miss any future videos as they come out and any future conversations that we have with like-minded believers. You can support this channel through YouTube memberships, through my Patreon, through my merchandise store. All of those links are going to be in the description of this video when it posts. Is already there for the live. And I'll make sure that I have Candid Truth links in there as well, so you guys can check them out and make sure we're supporting them. But as always, guys, thank you so much for being here, and I will see you guys next time.